Unit 2. This is not a research essay. This is not a research essay. This is not a research essay. And it doesn't matter how many times I say that, somebody, at least one somebody, and up to, a third of the class, will ignore me and think that I don't really mean that. But I mean it. This is not a research essay. What we're doing is we're going outside the academy, okay? Because who's a research essay for anyway, except your instructor, somebody who's in the field already. That's not what this is. We're trying to write in this class outside the academy and in the real world. And when you get out in the real world, people don't care. I mean, they want to be talked to like they're people instead of somebody who has to read something, which is what most instructors feel like sometimes when we read these research essays. So you're going to be tasked with writing a real article for real people. The article is about whatever you want it to be about, something that you care about passionately, or your discourse community, or that's just an example. It could be anything. But you're going to be writing about something that matters to you, and you're going to be writing about it to a certain audience. You can write for the New York Times, and it'll be a different audience than if you wrote the same content for the Daily News. And if you read both of them, you know what I'm talking about, right? And it's not going to be the same if it's somebody who reads PC Magazine, right? So there's different audiences, and we have to pay attention to that kind of thing. So that's what this is. It's sort of an exercise in trying to figure out the situation and write to a certain audience to try and change their mind, right? So if you've got something that you want to impact, some way you want to impact the community, this is the time to do it. Now, this is not meant to be a persuasive piece necessarily. It can be purely informational, but there are those of us in the Ret Comp world who think that and really truly believe that anytime you make a statement, you're trying to be persuasive. You're trying to convince somebody of something. There is no such thing as a neutral utterance except maybe duh. Even that's not neutral because most people will think of Homer Simpson and the media would think all kinds of things connected to The Simpsons, to the TV series, and to Homer himself. So these are not neutral utterances. These are things that matter. These are things that we want people to know about, and we want to get to these people, right? So that's the first thing, is you have to think of something that really matters to you that you want to write about, to do some research on, to ask some questions about, and then get that information to a regular audience. So this is the assignment sheet, 1,200 words, and trust me, most people have trouble stopping at 1,200 words once they get rolling on this. There'll be some research in it. You'll see in the examples that I'm going to show you how people did it, and I'll show exactly how to write this thing. Okay, so that's so your audience again is general. Here's the grading criteria, whatever. But first thing I wanted to show you was I want to go over here to this and to explain something that's really important to this whole enterprise, and that is something called a rhetorical situation. And that's this little guy right here. There's my handy-dandy little rhetorical triangle. Now, this might look confusing, but it's not. In fact, you can use this to analyze pretty much anything that you do, any situation you get in. Right? So there's a context for everything that we say, do, write, read, whatever. All right? It could be where we are in history. Could be the situation in which this action or this interaction happens. There's an author, somebody who creates something we call a text, which can be anything from something written to something visual, an image, a video. Anything that we can make hold still and analyze is a text. That's an old communication school term. Right? So there's somebody who creates it, and it's meant to go to an audience. And there are things that assumptions authors make about their audience, who they are, what their beliefs are, what the general makeup of that audience is. And the audience, in turn, will often have assumptions about who the author is, depending on what their credentials are, what they know about them already. So a lot of this is kind of going on in the background. And there's always a reason for this. Again, trying to just get information to somebody, which again is a misnomer and not quite ever true, to convince somebody to change their minds. And the whole point of this is, how do we change minds, right? So purpose. And then the text itself is not just a neutral thing either, because there are choices that the author makes to create this thing. Genre, doing something for a video is different than doing something written. And you'll get a chance to play with genres in Unit 3. Language use could be formal or informal mode. It could be visual. It could be just alphabetic, whatever. So this is a rhetorical situation. So I'm going to ask you to do something here real quick. Think about the last disagreement you had with somebody, the last argument. I'll give you a second. Okay, you got something in mind? Think about this a second. All right. Where were you when this happened? Where were you when this happened? Who started it? Okay, could be you. It could be the other person. And who are the other people that the person who started it were trying to address? And what did each member of this little dyad assume about the other one? Right? What was the purpose? Why did this argument happen in the first place? What was going on? Who was trying to convince somebody of something? Could have been a kid trying to convince a parent, I want to go get ice cream. And today there's no argument there because the kid wins. And I'm doing this on Friday, July the 16th, and it's hot. Okay, so there's always a purpose. And then how did the author frame this text? You know, were they yelling, waving their arms? Were they calm? What happened? Right? And then sort of what happened in the end? Was somebody persuaded that people just keep going on their own merry selves? Okay, that's a rhetorical situation. This whole thing is called a rhetorical situation, and what we just did is a little mini rhetorical analysis. So any communication act can be looked at and examined by breaking it down into these components. That's kind of what we're doing here, and that's how we're starting. So that's a rhetorical analysis. So the first thing that I want you to do for this unit, and I'm going to stop this video in just a second, is to go take a look at President Obama, and there's a prompt there, one of my announcement things, alert, alert, and just respond to the video. When you do that, come back, we'll go down to the next one.